Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you for this parish meeting, and you can see the agenda we will be following. I just want to open us with prayer, if we could. I think that our hearts and minds and emotions are in so many different places, and if we can just ground ourselves and gather together for this meeting, so let us pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this incredible community, this faith community of St. Paul's. I know that I feel blessed to be part of this community, to walk in the midst of the faithful you have called together. Be with us this time as we look at the things that we've done, look at the things that we're doing, and share things that we hope for the future. May we be a loving community, a sign of the possibility of that love and that care in our such divisive world and divisive nation. May our leadership lead us forward into that hope. And here at St. Paul's, may we be part of that hope, part of that love, part of that building of beloved community that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King invited us to. Be with us this day and bless us. Be in our words, in our sharing, and in our humor this day. And we ask it in Christ's name. Amen. Well, I just want to share, we have some exciting things to share with you. I want to just reiterate what I shared a bit in my homily, if I don't want to presume you heard that, but it has been just an incredible experience to be the rector of St. Paul's during this time, to walk with you, to walk in the midst of this community. I quote Bishop Rob Wright of the Diocese of Atlanta. It's a phrase that has been with me throughout this. The church doesn't close, it adapts. And we have adapted well. Our leadership has adapted. Our clergy and staff have adapted. You have adapted. And we have done incredible things, just incredible and wondrous things. And we intend to continue doing that going forward. This parish is a great parish. And we have areas of growth. We have areas to look for your suggestions to improve on what we're doing. But it's in that conversation that we'll learn where God is active in our midst. So I just want to thank you for being part of St. Paul's. And I want to introduce Frank, who is going to talk to us a little bit about the vestry election. Frank?
Thank you. I guess the first thing I wanted to say is this is not the annual parish meeting because it's defined by the diocese. An annual parish meeting has to be a physical meeting of the members of the parish. Obviously, we are not having a physical meeting. We're having an electronic meeting. And so the diocese, starting a couple of months ago, realized that this was going to be a problem for parishes. And because also in the diocese canons or guidelines or bylaws, whatever you want to call them, they provide for how to elect members of the new vestry. And they said, well, if you can't have an annual parish meeting, you obviously can't have an election at that meeting. So what you going to do? So the parish, so the diocese circulated to the parishes some guidelines as to what could be done. And basically they gave us two options. One is for the current members of the vestry to simply continue onward, or for the vestry to elect new members. And so our vestry looked at those two options and decided that having the vestry elect new members would be a better option. Part of it is that the people who are on the vestry have been there for 3 years. That 3 years is what they signed up for, and we shouldn't just presume that they're willing to spend another year or two on the vestry. And also that there's other people with good ideas and interest and willingness to help lead this church and this parish in these difficult times. So we wanted to reach out and make seats available on the vestry. So as per usual, our senior members of the vestry will rotate off at the end of this year, and new vestry members will come on. However, the way that we will elect those is different. And so we have submitted to the diocese for their approval a process. And that process is that we will inform the parish of the new temporary process, which we are doing right now. And it will also go out in a newsletter, which will remain in place only during the times the parish cannot meet. So if we still can't meet next year, which Lord knows I'm not looking forward to that, But if we still can't meet next year, this process will simply continue. But whenever we can start having physical meetings, we will stop using this process. But we're going to ask the parish to nominate or suggest vestry candidates. And this includes self-nomination or self, so you can self-identify. If you want to be on the vestry, that is fine. And so what we're going to ask you to do is to basically raise your hand, or or nominate or suggest someone else. You can send those to do it via email. You can send those to George or Mary or me or Javier. Any of us, send an email to any of us to, get listing a name, and we will collect those, and we will appoint an acting nominating committee that will take all of those suggestions and filter through them. The main thing that we'll do is, one, if somebody else is, if Mary nominates Frank, we'll call Frank and say, Frank, do you want to be on the vestry? Make sure that Frank does want to be on the vestry, but also to make sure we will also get additional information, because maybe not everybody knows everybody. So maybe if Katie is nominated, maybe there's a few people in the church who don't know Katie. So we'll call Katie up and make sure she wants to serve, and I'm sure she would. And then we'll get information from her so that other people on the vestry will know who it is that they are voting for. So that's the very standard process. We'll also distribute this information to the parish, although the parish will not be voting. And so then at our next regular meeting, which I believe will be in December, the vestry will vote on this slate of candidates. If there's not, we need 4 candidates, and if there's not 4 nominees, then this acting nominating committee will go out and solicit additional candidates. And so then the vestry will hold the vote and vote for the people who will serve in those new slots on the vestry. It will all be done via email, because we ourselves cannot meet, and the counting of those ballots will be confidential as usual, and they'll be counted by Lanny Wace and Mary Kentz. Mary, the senior warden, Lanny being the clerk of the vestry. So that is the process that we're going to use to select new wardens. So the main thing you need to do is, 1, be aware of it, and 2, if you or anybody you know would like to serve on the vestry, please send an email. I'll be honest, say I hadn't thought about it and given a deadline, but I'm thinking we probably need these pretty quick, like within the next week or so. So go ahead and send an email to Mary Kentz, Frank Laney, George Adamek, or Javier. With that, I would say if there's any questions, but we're not in that position, so I'm just going to hand it over to Mary Kentz. But if you do have any questions, feel free to call me or email me. I'll be happy to discuss this with you.
All right, thank you very much, Frank. And we will take questions at the end, so hold on to those and we'll get back to you. But now we're going into this, you can see we've stolen the Some Good News title for this next section. Shamelessly stolen it. It's just out there. But we're going to have 3 little presentations here. During this time, there have been a lot of things that happen with, like an idea. Someone will come up with an idea, and then they have to kind of regroup and say, is this something that we can do at St. Paul's? Do we have the capacity? Can we do it safely? There's tremendous behind the scenes work that goes into something. And then the people who have put this idea forth have this moment of, will people show up? And then what we want to show you now is the grace that flows when people show up. So we're going to first present something about our preschool. Brooke Bowersox and Laura Gorman have prepared this little video to show you what's going on with the preschool.
Welcome to St. Paul's Preschool. I'm Brooke Bowersox, the preschool director.
I'm Laura Gorman, the preschool assistant director. On behalf of our preschool staff, Miss Anna, Miss Pam, Miss Chrissy, Miss Ashley, Miss Jennifer, and Miss Donna and Miss Amanda,
we'd like to give a big thank you to the church staff. Father George, Father Javier, Melanie, Brandy, Rusty, Zach, and Natalie. We are so grateful for your guidance and support during this time. We'd also like to thank the church vestry, especially Frank and Mary. They played an integral role of moving us from the chapel into the church to help us open. We're now going to go inside and we're going to show you some of our preschool classrooms. We're now in the music room, which is our 3- and 4-year-old zebra room now. I'm going to pan around and show you some of the classroom. There we go. We currently have 4 classrooms, a 3-year-old classroom, a 3- and 4-year-old combination classroom, a 4-year-old classroom, and our transitional classroom. We have 35 students at this time, and we have 2 on the wait list.
Even though things look a little bit different, the children are still learning and having fun with friends.
We're now going to move outside and show you our temporary playground. We're now outside in our temporary playground. The children will come out here and play when construction starts and the other playground is no longer safe to use. I'm going to pan around, show you some of the buildings, basketball hoops. Special thanks to Phil Bowen and the men's group for moving this equipment over here for us so we can play safely. It's been such a joy to see the children back at St. Paul's, giving them a sense of normalcy, seeing the joy in their eyes, watching them play with friends, toys outside in this beautiful campus.
You will be seeing some photos of our recent events. Our Muffins for Mom event was a drive-through this year. The children also had a pumpkin picking day in the St. Paul's Pumpkin Patch. And you will also be seeing photos from our fun annual Halloween parade.
Like Alara mentioned, we even had a pumpkin patch here at St. Paul's. We used the garden plot behind the youth wing, and the teachers got pumpkins from Phillips Farm and put the pumpkins there so the children can come and pick out their own pumpkin to take home. They were so excited. We're just so happy to be here with our preschool family. We're happy to love, to learn, and to laugh here at St. Paul's. Thanks again for all your support. What's your favorite place to play at preschool?
Playground.
What do you like to do at preschool?
I play the floor.
What's your favorite thing about preschool?
Play with toys.
Favorite thing about preschool?
Play with my friends.
That's just amazing. I just can't thank Brooke and Laura enough. And I also want to mention that the protocols committee and some liaisons at the diocese really helped to make sure that not only is it fun and it's you know, a grace to those who are working there and those who are playing there, but it's safe. It's well done. We're ready to change if something new comes along that you know, any new safety concerns. So they're very responsibly carrying on, and it's just great. And now we're going to have also a presentation from another hidden group. You know, we have to be very careful with our children's ministries. We don't want to put families at risk, but we really need to show you all what's going on. So Natalie Shroka is going to tell you all a little bit about what's going on with children's ministries.
Like Brooke and Laura said, I want to thank all the families, all the staff. It's been amazing to see the children adapt to these times, stay connected. The support has just been amazing. Sort of transitioned over to a little bit of online, clergy-led, chapel-led, teacher-led Sunday programs. And just last weekend, we had the socially distanced, safe Halloween parade. And I can't tell you, it was just beautiful to see the family's eyes, the children's eyes. As you can see from these photos, you know, it was just amazing to be back together in person that way. And so yeah, that's, you know, we're going to be moving forward with a virtual Christmas pageant of sorts, where have great support, great ideas, creativity. We just want to make sure that the season is filled with something special for all the children and families at St. Paul's. And hopefully this week we'll have more information on that. But in the meantime, we love that the parents have adapted and support what we're doing online. And we love the feedback. We love sharing with your children. And I just, again, say thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. And, just again to highlight that this is a group that I want to, the vestry and the staff have been really concerned about, because we know there's tremendous stress on families, and gathering is really, really important, and handing off of the children to other people so that the parents can get a rest. Some of that's been a real challenge, and know that we're doing everything we can to try to make places for you to gather that are safe, or at least to get someone else to take the reins every now and then. And Natalie, thank you so much for keeping that group connected, and know that we're still open to all kinds of ideas, folks. We're doing whatever we can to keep you, to give you some respite, and also to keep you connected. I'm going to shift now to our next presenter, but before I do, I want to just let you know this is another area where an idea popped up organically at the beginning of this desperation of what can I personally do to make a difference? And then the question of, can St. Paul's be involved in this? Do we have the capacity? Will anyone show up? And then the grace that comes when that question is answered for us, that's in God's hands, who's going to show up. So I'm going to turn this over to Katie Bricio, and she's going to talk about some food security ministry.
Hey, yeah, thank you, Mary. So for several years now, the Kirk of Kildare Presbyterian had a program to feed kids in Wake County public school systems over the summers. It was just I don't want to minimize it, but it was a small program where they would provide some games and activities and meals for food insecure families in Wake County over the summer. And that was already in place and existed. And back in March of this year, the county realized that when the schools shut down, they were going to need an outlet to also address some food insecurity. And you may recall that when the pandemic occurred, we thought maybe it's going to be a couple of weeks, at most a couple of months. And so the county got in touch with Kirk of Kildare to resume their feeding program, just for really the apartments near the Kirk of Kildare, which is down on Kildare Farm Road. As reality set in, that church realized it was not going to be a matter of weeks, and that they needed help to feed all the hungry families in Western Wake County. So several churches got involved, and I signed St. Paul's up and said, absolutely, we will take a neighborhood. So we have this neighborhood, it's called the Gregory Apartments. And this is a picture of one of our distribution weekends. And at the height of our distribution, we were there 3 days a week. Initially, we handed out hot meals, and you can't see it in this picture, but those grocery bags contain boxed up meals from Boston Market. The meals were replacing the meals that kids would get at school, since kids weren't at school, and the families that rely on the county for food needed to replace those meals. So that was the initial distribution, was these hot meals. We did it on Saturdays and Sundays, and I had there were plenty. there were lots of volunteers that wanted to help. I actually had to make sure that I didn't have too many volunteers so that we could maintain social distancing. And we would go out to the Gregory on weekends and hand out these meals. The meals, although they are USDA approved, the equivalent of a school lunch, we soon realized that they were rather unsubstantial. So let me go forward in my slides here. This is another distribution picture. So we started supplementing the meals with whatever resources we could find. Now, a lot of this was managed by a whole group of churches. And so I'll just go through these slides and show you how this program evolved. The produce boxes were outstanding. We would go whenever we had to wait depending on funding to see when we could get anything. And so whenever the call went out, all these members from different churches all across Western Wake County would come and load up pickup trucks. Someone from our church, several families from our church just donated food. So several weekends, my living room looked like this while I bagged up food parcels to distribute. The Catholic Church got involved and they purchased milk from the Borden Company, and we started distributing milk in addition to the meals. We had some really regular volunteers. Here's the lovely Robinsons handing out milk on a Thursday. The county also gave us dental supplies one weekend, and we handed out toothbrushes. One weekend we had watermelons. This was a really fun weekend. This was probably at the height of our distribution. And you can see we really had a process. We had the hot meals, we had milk, we had produce, we had watermelons. And the important thing is the neighborhood really got to know us. And we've now streamlined the situation so that I have a text where I can contact everybody that relies on us for food, because as you guys know, as the summer and the pandemic continued, the need has not decreased, it has substantially increased. And so this is one weekend when we had the meals and the watermelons. The families know us, and it has been really great to interact with them. Now, the paradigm has changed, and I'm about to finish up here. Now, instead of doing the hot meals at the end of the summer, the group got together and we really discussed the fact that those hot meals were not as helpful to these families as providing grocery boxes, rice, beans, dry goods. So we've stopped the hot meal distribution, which was 3 days a week. And what we do now is every other weekend, we collect these dry goods. We have dry goods boxes provided from different resources. And I can talk later about where the funding for all this is coming from. But we have dry goods boxes and we're just giving out groceries every other weekend. But because the funding is scarce, last weekend, on Halloween, we had our own food drive and we collected food parcels. We lined up these trucks in the back of the parking lot, and people drove by. You can see the back of those cars filling up with food bags. And we did our own food collection and we handed it out. And our food recipients are very, very grateful. And it's been a great endeavor, and it continues. As long as this emergency happens, we are going to be handing out food.
Thanks, Katie, for that. This is Father Javier. It's a joy to be with you this morning. I am here to share with you a bit about our work with One Wake. I wanted to start, I don't know if you took part of the service already this morning, but our Old Testament reading was from the book of Joshua. Joshua standing there with the people of Israel, getting ready to enter the promised land. And he has this talk with them, this opportunity to check in around the commitments that they had made. And Joshua stands before the people of Israel and he says, "Choose this day whom you will serve. Choose this day whom you will serve." I think of those words as I think over the last four and a half years that I've been with you, St. Paul's. as I think about the fact that I got here in 2016 and was invited to a clergy meeting with a few folks from Raleigh over at Neighbor to Neighbor Outreach in Southeast Raleigh to talk about what we could do together, to talk about whether or not we could intervene before the bills were late and the rent was past due, to collaborate and come up with a way to act on issues before they became crises. And that is the work of 1 week. Over the past 4 years, we have chosen to show up for one another, and you have chosen whom you will serve. Love over hate, public action over private interest, common cause over partisan agendas. That is what 1 week is about. And we have built an organization that on Tuesday, October 13th of this year, in the middle of a pandemic, was able to gather over 3,000 people together on an online assembly to hold candidates for county commissioners accountable to promises they made around working toward affordable housing with us, to hold private developers like John Kane of Kane Realty accountable, to make sure that the downtown South development worked for the benefit of Southeast Raleigh residents, to make sure that the mayor of Raleigh was also on board for that very purpose, and to come together to figure out, to do some serious listening around how this pandemic is impacting families in the public education system. That is what we are trying to do here. And we brought together 42 churches, mosques, synagogues, and nonprofits. We raised over $112,000 this year alone, and we're committed to raising twice that much next year to pay our own way and not be beholden to private interests in order to continue to do this work. You have chosen whom you will serve over the past 4 years. And that is the work that we are about. Friends, the work is not over. I know that some of you may be rejoicing this week. Some may not be rejoicing. Some may be upset at the results of the most recent election. And I want to invite each and every one of you, wherever you land on the political spectrum, to choose this day collaboration over enmity. Choose this day to work together with our neighbors. We can't do this alone, my friends. The healing of this nation, the healing of the risks that divide us, start right here at home. And if you are missing from the equation, we won't get to where we need to go. Friends, the work is not over just because the election is over. The work has just begun. So I invite you, if you've heard about 1 week, but haven't been able to participate in an assembly or a meeting, you know how to reach me. Give me a call. I would love to talk to you about what we might be able to do together. But rest assured, there is work ahead, good work, meaningful work, and I invite you to be a part of it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Javier. And, folks, he is an in-demand priest right now, Javier. I made a remark a long time ago, I think it was a decade ago, when we were in person having a vestry or a parish meeting, about how our priests are ambassadors for us in the community. They go to places where we can't go. And Javier and George both are going to places, other congregations, these meetings that they're having out in the community that we aren't a part of. And they are tremendous ambassadors for us. So thank you, both George and Javier, for what you're doing that we don't even see. So now we're moving to the renovation update. And I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, you're very excited to see the changes that are happening on our campus. And there are no slides for this. And that's very indicative of the halt, the pause that we're in, that has nothing to do with St. Paul's and everything to do with some bureaucracy. Just to update you, we had a capital campaign. We raised money for foundation repairs, reserves for maintenance, and then the renovation. And the renovation includes an expanded entryway to the parish hall with restrooms, an expansion to our kitchen, moving the kids club so it'll all be in that education building, improving the classrooms. We're going to open some walls, fixing the floors, fixing the ceiling, and then linking our main building and the offices to the parish hall. So that's what we're about. We have done our due diligence, and the construction company has done their due diligence. We have all the pricing done. We've even, with the progress we've made at St. Paul's, is that we have a project manager. Rex Pierce has volunteered. He's a retired project manager from Wake County Schools. So we even have people in place to keep an eye on everything from our end. But we've just kind of run up against bureaucratic, part of it's the pandemic, but just to reassure you that the cost of this project is steady. Everything is going according to plan from a construction, obtaining the materials. We're just waiting for that final piece. I would love to put a date on it. I'm going to think that I'm going to have one of the best Thanksgivings ever, and that I'll have something really new to be thankful for. The moment that there is dust flying and walls coming down, I'm going to get pictures out to you, I promise. But in the meantime, we'll have prayers around this. I started thinking about this the other day and about what this renovation is going to do. And remember that the Higgins Greenway is also a project that's going to happen. The town is doing this greenway that's going to be it's going to be along the border of our parish with the neighborhood. And I started to think about all the new entry points that we're going to have when all of these projects are done. We have the new entryway into the parish hall, the new entryway, well, from both sides, the new entryway off of a greenway into our church. And we have this virtual entryway now that we have an online presence. And, I just think that that's not coincidental. This is where we're going to be when we reopen with new entry points. So the concerns that we have about what's going on in this delay, I want to hold before you. The biggest concern is the effect that it has had on the preschool. The pandemic helped in a way because people were not rushing to get their kids back into preschool setting. We had to take our time and make sure. It was our hope that the construction would be wrapped up by the time we knew what we were doing with COVID, and that didn't coincide. So enrollment in preschool had to be lower to accommodate for less space. Fewer families were interested at this time. We hoped that in the spring, everything would open back up and enrollment would recover. It's not going to happen that way. I just don't see that everyone all of a sudden is going to walk into all these classrooms and that we will recover from a budget standpoint. The interest, yes, not a problem. The budget, there's going to be a shortfall. And that shortfall, we have determined that the vestry sat with these numbers on the advice of the finance committee. And what we've decided to do is share the burden of cost that this delay and that COVID is having this effect on the preschool bottom line. So the reserves from the preschool, the reserves from the parish are going to come together to support this so that we can just get through this little hitch. But I don't have any doubt that we're going to be, with all these new entry points, there's going to be some magic that's going to happen in 2021. So now I'm going to shift gears and I'm going to talk about my notes here. The stewardship campaign. You all have heard a lot about this in the last couple of weeks. There's some videos. We're going to have a repository of all of these stories that are coming out of the stewardship campaign. I just want to throw it to you that we've had a tremendously talented team working on the stewardship campaign. Kay Burgess has been the manager of all of this behind the scenes. She's kind of like the wizard. She's pulled together all the data. Melanie and Brandy, of course, have given her a lot of input. And we assembled a team around Kay. Julia Rudy and Brandon Jernigan are the magic behind the videos. Julia was an incredible interviewer. She's pulling those stories out of those folks. And then Brandon has worked his magic with weaving all these stories together. Elena Laughlin helped to compile what I'm going to present to you now, which are some written testimonials. We're going to put those together in a little package too. I've got a couple of snippets here that I realize with a Zoom presentation, you might not be able to read the what's being said here. So I am going to do that, that PowerPoint death by reading to you what some of this says and just commenting on this. But again, remember that pray, gather, and go out is our theme. So Rick Bradley is somebody that shared this story. I'm not going to share the details of his story. You can find that, but it's about the unexpected grace of having a parishioner show up for you when you're worried about your loved one. And so Rick shares this personal story. And as he says here, you know, there's personal stories about why we give and what it means to our faith journey to give of our treasure. His story is rooted in very personal, rooted around stuff at St. Paul's and people who show up during challenging times. And on the next slide, and I have to shrink my video because I'm right over what it says. The story that Rick offers is what's committed him to this faith community. And he and Vicky, their family, are financially supporting St. Paul's during this time of great need. St. Paul's is responding in amazing ways. Rick says, your reasons for giving may be different from mine, but I hope we all are as appreciative as I am to be part of such a caring faith community. We also have a story from Gail Herman, who's been at St. Paul's for a long time, almost 30 years, she says, and you know, having children and then transitioning to other phases of your life. And she says, you know, St. Paul's has been an integral part of her family's life for almost 30 years. Her life is very interwoven with St. Paul's. She feels blessed by clergy, staff, and friends that she's made here. St. Paul's offered pastoral care when she most needed it, and that fellowship continues today. And for Gail, she has turned this into an involvement with others too. She gives back in this community in some tremendous ways. And she says, dedicating myself to giving to St. Paul's during the stewardship campaign is a vital way of ensuring that the good works continue at St. Paul's and that we can pay our extraordinary clergy and staff as well as maintain the physical building and grounds. May we all worship together in church again soon, and may we spread the love of God to all those we meet on our journey through life. I think that's a great point, Gail. I love her spirit. And now this is some comments from LaQuinta Jernigan. You know, LaQuinta has that demographic, those young children, and all of the stress that is on her life in these days. And she shares the struggles of a global pandemic combined with racist violence and injustice have become a part of our everyday norm. The weight of facing so much unknown might tempt you to push pause on many elements of your life, including stewardship. But LaQuinta says, I feel this immense pressure calls me to dig even deeper to support my community now than ever before. And LaQuinta makes a really good point. During the past 7 months, St. Paul's has shown what community should look like. Through our gifts, we have continued to support one another and those in need in our community. And I love this part. I share this with LaQuinta. I have greatly missed coming to church, teaching Sunday school and seeing friends, but when everything seemed to be falling apart, St. Paul's has been my rock. And she says, I encourage everyone to prayerfully consider what gift you can share to support St. Paul's. And again, the theme, pray, gather, and go out. You know, I think reflecting on all the messages that people have given us during this time, I really want to center on what LaQuinta said there a little bit about this is not a time to hit the pause button. You know, in March, George alluded to this when the vestry gathered, we were determined to make St. Paul's emerge as a steadying influence during this crisis. We moved resources into new things like cameras and Zoom accounts. We formed new advisory committees, and we took on extra tasks to try to stay safe and provide support. We weren't sure where the support was going to be needed in our church family, who was going to get sick, but we got ourselves ready to respond. And then in May, we saw a tremendous generosity in giving from our congregation. And so we went full steam into the second half of 2020. Let's get these formation programs going. Let's reboot the children's ministries. Let's find safe ways to do things. And let's reopen the preschool. We had the resources because we had your generosity. So we are finishing 2020 in a very strong place. We didn't have to reach into reserves because we had that PPP loan and that helped us cover some of the problems with preschool funding in May. And we also have some savings by not being able to expand our staff. I want to remind you that we were going to try to expand by hiring 3 new people, and we did actually make a couple of offers of employment, and it just didn't pan out. And, it's very hard to try to get people to make such changes during the pandemic. So for 2021, this could be a challenging year. I'm someone, I don't like to leave things undone. And so it bothers me that we didn't get those hires finished, especially that facility manager position. I've been talking about that for 3 years. But I'm so hopeful. I really think it's not, it's just a matter of connecting the dots. I am convinced, and the vestry is convinced, that this community is expanding its generosity. In 2020, we were not a people who were going to be held back. We weren't a people that were shrinking. We became this presence in the greater community. And so I think let's be a people who invest even more into God's places. What could be more essential than investing here? The vestry is poised and eager to do more. Your generosity drives what we can do. We have already received 35 pledges, and there's a net gain. I think it's almost like a 34% increase already, just on 35 pledges. We need a lot more. I want you to think about the stories and the videos. This is your time to name St. Paul's as an essential place for reclaiming what the world can look like. Why would you hold anything back? I'm very enthusiastic about where we are going in the next few years based on who is getting involved. The vestry is an incredible team, and there's a great ability to draw back and see the big picture, or to get down into the details when it's called for. Frank has been steady and insightful as a junior warden. He's been patient with my energy, and he matches my drive to get things done. And I just want to assure this congregation that we are in really, really good hands moving into 2021. And I just really ask you to let your generosity flow right here to St. Paul's. It's just, you all are just a tremendous group of people to be associated with. And I am so confident in the changes that we can make in this community. And I just want to thank everybody for all the response that we've had to this point, and encourage you, challenge you to be someone who really steps up this year. And so now I'm going to hand it back over to George.
Thanks, Mary, and thanks to everybody. I hope that what's been shared conveys to you just pieces, really, of what is happening at St. Paul's. What you've seen today, what you've heard today, are not the only things happening, but little snippets, little examples of things that are happening. So, as I've said all along, we haven't closed, we've adapted, and that means you're adapting. You're supporting some incredible work that we're doing here at St. Paul's. So I once again want to thank you and reiterate the message that Mary made, reiterate the message I shared at the Eucharist earlier, is that St. Paul's is a place worth supporting. And I want to encourage you to grow and to stretch in what you can do for 2021 so that we can continue moving forward as an incredible faith community. I also want to take this opportunity. I know this isn't the annual meeting, it's a parish meeting, but I want to thank the vestry for their leadership during this year. I want to thank our wardens. I want to thank Frank and Mary for their incredible leadership and what they've been doing during this time. So many things that weren't even mentioned in this presentation. Their advice, their counsel, the working together that we've done together, and you know, it's kind of like when the pandemic came, we were ready. We were ready because we had built a community of trust, a community of relationships, and that's really what has enabled us to move forward. But I particularly, I'm going to put her on the spot here. I particularly want to thank Mary for her leadership these last 2 years as senior warden. You know, when in 2018, when invited Mary to be the senior warden in 2019, I remember saying to her, you know, I'm going to be on sabbatical in 2019. And that's always something that is a different situation for a senior warden to have when the rector's away for a few months and the senior warden takes on an added responsibility. And Mary agreed to that, and I went off on my sabbatical. As I've teased, I'm glad I did that last year, not this year. But I want to thank Mary for her leadership during that. And then 2020 is a pandemic. I've teased Mary and Frank, and particularly Mary, that these times will go down for such an, I mean, this will go down in the archives of St. Paul's. What happened? You know, there's a room down the hallway that has our archives and our history. And what will capture what it was like here at St. Paul's 20, 30 years from now when people look back? What was it like during the pandemic? And I said to Mary, she had such a key role in leadership during this time where we have not paused, where we are actually in the midst of a pandemic and building and adding both physically to our buildings. Yes, there's a delay, not due to us, due to other bureaucracy, but we're ready to go, and we will probably be, you know, moving forward on that very, very soon. But that's what we do in the midst of a pandemic. We grow, we build, not just physical buildings, but we grow and build our community together. So I want to thank Mary for her leadership during this time. And it was a special couple of years. And we have challenges ahead of us as well. And I'm confident in the leadership that we have moving forward, and confident in our staff. As I mentioned during the liturgy, a clergy and staff, you know, I love working with Javier. We've become so close. He's like a friend to me. And you know, when I introduce Javier to the clergy, I say, you know, we work together at St. Paul's. You know, I never say Javier works for me. No one really works for me. I work together with people. And Javier has been such a tremendous gift. Working with Candy as our deacon, she is a stalwart, working so deeply. This has been a challenge for Candy during this pandemic. And for all of us clergy in terms of pastoral care, which is so much the heart of Candy. So I want to thank her and thank Tony for the work that she still does with us in pastoral care. So I want to just thank everybody and the staff that has truly stepped up. I think we've built new relationships, deeper relationships during this time. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who makes all that we're doing able to happen. So yeah, I just want to encourage you. I have some notes here that I wasn't looking at when I was talking to you. Just encourage you for the survey. The input is so important in a parish this size. We're a fairly large parish, and input is key. So if you could fill out the survey, it would be really helpful. I ask you to personally do it for me. It helps me to know where people are at and what the needs are going forward. We have other things to do. We've done great things, but I know there's other things to do. And there may be things you can bring up and raise to us that we need to address and look at. And as always, as the rector, please pledge. Please pledge online. It's a statement of support and care and trust. And you can trust St. Paul's and trust the work we do is significant, very significant among ourselves and in the community beyond us. So thank you for being here with us for this meeting. So, Mary, are there any questions or things that?
Yeah, George, let me just give a little bit of an overview for folks so that they know how to ask questions. So we want to open it up for questions at this time. And so I want to invite you, as we do in adult formation, you can submit questions in the chat. You can enter questions into a Q&A button that you'll find at the bottom of your screen if you have a computer in front of you. You can also raise your hand, and that should be an option below too if you'd like to ask your question out loud. So I invite you to use any of those three options. If you have any questions right now, this is the time to ask. Have one
Okay.
I'll just read it out loud. And this is for Mary. What is a bureaucratic snag holding up construction?
So if I had 3 weeks, I could go through every step of what has happened along the way. No, but just it's a matter of the process. Whenever you try to do any kind of a build in the town of Cary. You know, this is only about an 1,800 square foot addition, which you would think is really, really small. But because we're doing some digging and because we're adding structure, we have to go through all of the development and construction safety reviews with the town of Cary. So they review our architectural plans as well as how are we changing the development. So basically the land that we sit on, how is that being changed? And, you know, we hoped that hiring 2 large firms, both from a civil engineering side and an architectural side, and really from the construction side, that they would have all of the boxes checked and everything would flow right through the town in a standard 3 to 4 months. But the process is taking way longer. I can tell you that at each stage, there are only little procedural corrections that have to be made. We haven't had to change any of our designs. Maybe we've had to say, oh, the trees we're putting there are going to be 4 feet instead of 3 feet tall. I mean, that's the micro level that we've had to correct. But every time something has to be corrected, it goes into this vortex and we lose, you know, where has it gone? The pandemic has affected our ability to stand at their door at the town of Cary and say, is it ready yet? Trust me, I'm trying. They are getting tired of my emails and my phone calls, but we're very close. We're going to have what they call a pre-construction meeting next week. And I think that will be the end of all the snags. Thank you.
If I could jump in here a bit, give you one example. There was an affidavit that I needed to sign. I've needed to sign it since last May. They told me about it a week ago. Why didn't we know about it in May? I don't know, but it delayed things for about 3 or 4 days for me to get the paperwork, me to get it to a notary, me to sign it, me to get it back to whoever. That could have been going on while all kinds of other things were going on, but everything was waiting on me signing and getting notarized this piece of paper instead of me having the entire month of June to do it because nobody told us. Nobody raised that question. So I'll be honest and say, in my view, it's that kind of inefficiency out of the city of Cary. You know, they take umbrage when we say it, but you know, it's like they don't talk to each other. They have no idea what their own process is, and so things just sort of sprout up like mushrooms. You know, oh, suddenly we need to do this. Oh, suddenly we need to do this. Well, why didn't you tell me back in May when we had all this time?
And I'm going to hold up. I noticed a question in there about the stormwater runoff, and is that part of one of the regulations with development? And a very neat thing that I learned, yes, that is one of the things. You know, are you taking trees down? Are you changing the flow of water? What are you doing to correct what you're affecting? And the retention pond helps a lot with that. But there are also nitrogen offsets that you have to purchase. And we have actually done that. It was a very small correction that we had to do. But yes, believe me, that is something that's very dear to my heart. I know a lot about that pond, and I have protected that. I would probably put myself between, you know, the pond and a bulldozer if it came to that.
All right, we have a couple of other questions and in the last 5 minutes here. So the first one that I just want to mention, since it was already answered, was food distribution at the Gregory will continue through the fall. So look for announcements about that. And we'll keep working on that. Thank you to Katie and all those volunteers that make that possible. The other question is, what are plans to get the congregation back into church?
Maybe I can answer that if I could take that on. The plans are to try to get people back worshiping in church. To summarize, as you know, in stage 2, where we are right now, we can have up to 25 people, including the clergy, the video folks. So it's about 19 people that could gather in worship. So we're having a meeting of our protocol committee tomorrow. And I actually want to thank Natalie, who's here. Natalie, the staff are trying to work on how to put together a way for folks to sign up. That's what we're going to have to do. People are going to need to sign up to come. And Natalie actually did some work on this, and we're bringing it to the protocol committee tomorrow to kind of get into the details and how we go about inviting people. So our hope is to have some kind of a sign up that will be available. Parishioners will sign up, and those will be the 19 who come that Sunday. Again, I always say, conditioned on the fact that we are able to stay in stage 2, which is based on the positive testing in Wake County being at 6.5% or less. It's county by county. Some parts of our diocese have had to go back to stage 1B and cannot meet in person. We're hoping Wake County does, but just being realistic as well. We got to keep monitoring as we go forward. But that's our hope. And trust me, I, more than anyone, want to see folks gathered in our congregation. So we'll be working on that tomorrow and hoping to get word out to the parish on that. Hope that helps.
George, would you like to say a word about sort of how the diocese is handling it too, in terms of where we might be heading if cases keep going up?
Yeah, what the diocese announced last week that they are going back to stage 1B as a diocese. 1B limits just outside possibilities of, I think it's 30 or less, but no face-to-face, no indoor kinds of things. But what the diocese is doing is it's announcing that as a diocese, but giving each congregation the option to stay in stage 2 if their county meets the metrics to stay in stage 2. So you may have friends of yours in other parishes and other counties of our diocese that are not able to gather, but we are at this point. So the diocese has moved back to stage 1B, and which again limits some things that we can do. And that's something we have to keep monitoring as well as a parish. So we're part of this larger diocese too. And there are weekly meetings, phone meetings that are taking place with diocesan staff, with the bishops that I've been on. Mary Kins actually has participated in some of those meetings as well. And then the diocese issues each Friday, usually, an update on what's going on with its protocols. Javier, is there anything else I'm forgetting with that?
No, I think that's helpful. So we have, I think these questions have been answered, so I'm just going to read them out. One of the questions was, does the vestry meet in person? And Frank Laney has put in the chat, we are not meeting in person. We meet over Zoom at this time, following the diocesan guidelines around that. And there was a question in the chat about how about the option for an outdoor gathering to allow more people to attend? And George, would you like to say a word about that?
Yeah, I think that that's something we've tried to look at as well. How many folks are allowed outside, and then setting that up, some of the possibilities of setup, which is sometimes more challenging than you may think. Setting up, we have to set up sound systems, 6-foot distancing. So that's something we're looking at as well, as possibilities. As the weather cools, though, that could be a challenge. But we're trying to, as we're in stage 2, how to set up a process for people to participate ahead of time, how to sign up and see what's available. I mean, I don't want to give my cards away here, but we're looking at some possibilities for Christmas, seeing if there's some things we can do. And I don't want to get your hopes up, but we're looking, could we do something Christmas Eve even? that could possibly be outside. But we can tell you, I may be showing my cards too much, but we're looking at what the possibilities would be to do that. So, yes, we're looking at all kinds of possibilities to get us together.
I want to take just a second to just respond, earlier, just one last reflection. George, thank you for your kind words that you said, and these strange times to be a senior warden. And I want to go back, 4 years ago, when Julia Rudy encouraged me to run for vestry. Finally, after 20 plus years, I had the courage to run for vestry. But before I did, I asked a couple of close friends who had been on vestry before, I think Glenda and Nancy and Julia, and as well as my husband, who had been a senior warden, did they think that it would change the way I interacted with the clergy or the parishioners in such a way that would be detrimental to me? Was there a risk that I would have a jaded view, or I'd have conflict or something like that? And I was encouraged, they thought I could handle it. I had the temperament that would survive whatever came my way as the senior warden. And there's no way I could have predicted my spiritual growth. And it came from this congregation and this clergy that I am in such a different place spiritually now than I was before I was on vestry. And I don't know how many people get to say that, but that comes from this parish and the special place that it is. And so I am not going to fade away into the shadows of this parish. I'm going to keep on doing whatever Frank and George need me to do to help wrap things up. But thank you for the spiritual growth that has come just from all of you. I'm so indebted, and thank you for asking me to be on vestry and allowing me to be in that position. Javier, do we have any other questions?
Well, I'd like to jump in here and make a couple of comments off of part of what Mary was just saying, but I really see, and I believe, the Lord's leadership, God's leadership, bringing things together for our benefit. We're looking at COVID, looking at nobody showing up, how many people are going to continue to give to this organization that's not doing anything for me at this point in time. Well, for one thing, people did continue to give, but also at the same time, the city of Cary comes in and says, we want to buy a strip of land across the side of your property. Here's a bunch of money. PPP loans come in, which we had no idea was going to happen. Here's a bunch of money. So financially, we're doing fine. And I know that this has been a real stressor for Mary and her family, but Mary has been out of work for basically the last 6 months, maybe 9 months. I've stopped counting. And that has been a true blessing for St. Paul's, because Mary's full-time job, more than at times, much of the time, has been being the senior warden of St. Paul's. I mean, it is amazing the amount of time and effort she has spent, not just with the building, but all kinds of other projects, although the building has been a major time vortex. And so I thank her. I watched all this going on and going, I am so glad that I'm not senior warden. I have a full-time job. My job has not stopped. And I could not imagine trying to handle all the stuff that she's handled and try to work my job. Being senior warden is supposed to be a very part-time volunteer job, but Mary has made it, this year has made it for Mary a full-time job. And so thank you very much. So I think the Lord is really watching over us, protecting us, making sure that we have the resources we need to do what we need to get done. And the challenges he's putting before us, he's also giving us the resources to meet. So thank you, Mary, and thank you for all the leadership of Father George and Father Javier, and all the staff and all the other leadership of our parish, who is moving us forward in tremendous ways and opening our eyes to other possibilities that aren't going away. I think what Katie and her team is doing, we're not going to stop. Just when we find a vaccine, we're not going to stop being concerned about the food security in our neighborhood. And thank you.
All right, everyone, we are 5 minutes over, so I think we will need to wrap this up for now. If you have any additional questions, please be sure to email the clergy and the senior and junior warden, Mary and Frank. We would love to be in touch and hear from you. And just remember that church is not canceled. It continues, and we continue to adapt, and I look forward to this journey with you. So take care, everybody. And have a good Sunday.